Our top focus on gravitas. Is there a secret NATO plot to remove Ukraine Zelensky? NATO, the Western coalition headed by America, which has armed and financed Ukraine's response to the Russian occupation, is now growing tired of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky because he has failed to stop the Russian advance and has now become an obstacle to peace negotiations with Moscow. And also, Zelensky continues to demand money and arms from the West without any hint of accountability. And this is what the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, is alleging. Well, that may be predictable, but this is also the growing sense of reports and commentary appearing in Western capitals. According to the SVR, NATO members are working quietly towards a change in Ukraine's leadership. One turning point came when Zelensky removed his most successful general, we are talking about General Valery Zolonshiny, in March 2024 and sent him to London as Ukraine's ambassador. Now, you could argue that it's no surprise that Russia is saying this. After all, Russia is at war with Ukraine and has its own motives for wanting to change Ukraine's leadership. And you would not be wrong saying that. Still, we cannot help but ask this question. What if what Russia is saying is true? Could there be merit to SVR's claims about a change in leadership in Ukraine? The SVR says that NATO is mulling ways to facilitate Zelensky's removal. One of the ways they could apparently do this is by discrediting him ahead of potential elections in Ukraine next fall. SVR claims that Western officials view Zelensky as a barrier to peace talks with Moscow. You see, Zelensky's term as the president of Ukraine expired last May. However, he has remained in office, refusing to resign during a time of war. Presidential polls in Ukraine have been postponed also due to the martial law imposed when the war began in 2022. According to the SVR, Western leaders want to freeze the war in Ukraine. They allegedly want to steer both Moscow and Kiev towards negotiations. But now, they see Zelensky as an obstacle to achieving this very goal. The Russian intelligence agency claims that NATO is allegedly preparing a campaign to undermine Zelensky's position. And this could involve, number one, releasing information that purportedly connects Zelensky and his administration to misappropriation of over $1.5 billion, which were designated for military equipment purchases. The SVR has also alleged that Zelensky was implicated in the illegal sale of Western-supplied weapons to armed groups in Africa. Well, the question is, how much of all this is true? It's difficult to say at this point of time, especially during wartime. Now, the SVR also claims that with Trump's return to power in the US, there is increasing uncertainty regarding the future of Western support for Ukraine, which may have accelerated efforts to replace Zelensky. However, neither NATO nor Ukrainian officials have publicly addressed the SVR's claims so far. Now, do Russia's claims have any validity? Again, it's hard to say at this point of time. Moreover, Ukraine's history with corruption only complicates matters further. In fact, corruption has been cited as the major reason why Ukraine is still not a part of NATO or the European Union. Western leaders have repeatedly emphasized the need for Ukraine to address corruption as a top priority. Since the conflict began, scandals related to military spending have emerged, including instances of price gouging on food supplies for armed forces, overpriced winter gear, and also unfulfilled contracts for mortar shells. This corruption has led to questions about the integrity as well as efficiency of Ukraine's governance. And NATO member states have also expressed frustration with Zelensky's demands and the never-ending war. For instance, Poland, which was once Ukraine's staunch ally, expressed frustration with Zelensky's lack of gratitude. Polish defense minister talked about the general sense of fatigue from the war in Poland. Speaking to Financial Times, he said, and I'm quoting him here, "Of course, there is fatigue in Polish society, and it is understandable, especially when people here see young Ukrainian men driving the latest models of cars or staying in five-star hotels." Not stopping there, he goes on to say that, on the one hand, I understand Zelensky because it is his role to always demand greater assistance. But I think he and Ukraine must also remember that when others were only sending helmets, we sent tanks, unquote. That response was an apparent reference to a recent point of friction between the two countries over Warsaw's refusal to supply Kiev with its remaining stock of MiG-29 jets. Warsaw had said that they needed them for their own security. Warsaw's refusal to send more aircraft showed the cracks in the NATO alliance. But it's not just Poland. In the US, a recent opinion poll has shown that support for arming Ukraine had declined amongst Americans also. And in Germany, EU's most powerful member, lawmakers and military officials say that there is nothing left to give to Ukraine from the German armed forces' sparse talks. Meanwhile, Russia has repeatedly said that it is open to talks, but has pointed out that it is unable to do so because of the ban on talks that was announced by Zelensky in 2022. Russian President Vladimir Putin has also stated that freezing the conflict is unacceptable and that Ukraine's accession to NATO cannot be allowed. For Russia, the demands to end the war are very clear, and now Russia has also joined the US in urging Ukraine to hold elections. Trump's envoy Keith Kellogg stated that elections during wartime are essential for democracy. However, Ukraine fears that holding elections now could weaken national unity and invite Russian influence. But as US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has highlighted, the war is not just about fighting back against Russia, but recognizing the current challenges and the ongoing human suffering. Rubio has stated that the goal should not be a prolonged stalemate on the battlefield. And while some within the Western Bloc continue to support Zelensky's strong leadership during the war, others have argued that his grip on power may not be good for Ukraine. On top of that, Zelensky's popularity is also declining, with more and more Ukrainians expressing concern over his centralization of power, which may undermine the country's democracy. Zelensky says that holding elections would require a change to the electoral code, prohibiting votes during martial law, ensuring fair voting procedure for those serving in combat, and also reaching the millions of Ukrainians displaced during the war. It raises this very question: who will fund that? Will US or EU fund elections in Ukraine? That seems highly unlikely, knowing what we know now. Would it come as a surprise then? NATO has grown wary of Zelensky. And as Ukraine continues to face mounting losses on the battlefield, US President Donald Trump has hinted that US military aid comes at a cost, and that is access to Ukraine's vast deposits of rare earth elements. The next story explains how, with an estimated value exceeding $26 trillion, minerals from Ukraine are crucial for the global supply chain. Take a look.
Ukrainian forces are falling back. Outgunned and outnumbered, they are losing ground in the east as Russian troops push forward. The battle for Pokrovsk is turning against them. Supply lines are under fire, fresh reinforcements are scarce, and Moscow is seizing the advantage. The war nears a breaking point, but now a new demand emerges from Kyiv's biggest backer, Washington. US President Donald Trump proposes a bargain: American military support in exchange for access to Ukraine's vast mineral wealth.
We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to go in terms of a guarantee. We want a guarantee. We want We're handing them money hand over fist. We're giving them equipment. European is not keeping up with us. They should equalize. And look, we have an ocean in between. They don't. It's more important for them than it is for us. But they're way below us in terms of money. And they should be paying at least equal.
With a treasure trove of critical raw material worth over $26 trillion, Ukraine is one of the world's most valuable suppliers of metals essential for defense, technology and green energy. To put that in perspective, the US economy is worth $30 trillion. Ukraine has rich reserves of lithium, titanium, beryllium, gallium and uranium deposits. The global market for these minerals has doubled in 5 years, surpassing $320 billion and is expected to double again soon. If the US secures control over Ukraine's resources, it could reduce its reliance on China, a dominant force in rare earth supplies. But at what cost to Ukraine? President Volodymyr Zelensky is seeking clarity on US aid and making a shocking claim that Ukraine received only $75 billion of the $177 billion US-approved aid.
Look, I as a president of a warring country tell you, we received more than $75 billion. That is $100 billion out of these $177 billion. Or even $200 billion, as some people estimate, we never received. And this is important because we talk about specific things, because we did not get it with money. We got it in weapons.
As the front line crumbles, Kyiv faces a harsh reality. Will it agree to Trump's terms, risking economic sovereignty, or refuse and see military aid diminish? With Russian forces advancing and time running out, Ukraine is being pushed into a dangerous corner. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Moving on, America has a big problem in the form of Elon Musk. The world's richest man is waging a war against US bureaucracy, but for power and for profit. Well, here's what I mean when I say that. It's been 2 weeks since the tech billionaire started leading US government's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. And in 2 weeks, Musk has upended the federal bureaucracy, defied protocols, dismissed federal employees, and made efforts to shut down US aid. All decisions that not only impact American lives, but also lives of people around the world. Here's what he has been up to. Elon Musk's team has gained access to sensitive financial and data systems. They have disregarded officials who have warned against breaching certain government protocols. Musk and his team have also swiftly shut down specific government programs. On Saturday, he said that his willingness to work on the weekends was his superpower. He has said that it gave him an advantage over his adversary. The adversary he was talking about was the federal workforce. There's also pressure on employees. Federal employees say that they have received messages implying that they were not hardworking, which encouraged some of them to leave their positions altogether. Several former and current senior government officials, even those who like what he's doing, say that they are feeling helpless about how to handle Musk's level of unaccountability. On Monday, US President Donald Trump himself sounded a cautionary note. He told reporters, and I quote here, "Elon cannot do and will not do anything without our approval, and we will give him the approval where it's required. And when not appropriate, we will not. If there's a conflict, then we will not let him get near it," unquote. However, Trump has also given Musk vast power over the bureaucracy, power that regulates his companies and awards them contracts. Musk is not shaping public policy. He is also making personal decisions, including reportedly successfully pushing for Trump to pick Troy Menck as the Air Force Secretary. Here's the kicker Menck, who previously ran Pentagon's National Reconnaissance Office. He helped Musk secure a multi-billion-dollar contract for SpaceX to build and deploy a spy satellite network for the government. But it does not just stop there. Since Trump's inauguration, Musk and his team have also taken over the U.S. digital service. It has been renamed as United States DOGE Service. Musk's team have also commanded the federal government's Human Resources Department called the Office of Personnel Management. They have gained access to the Treasury's payment system, which is a powerful tool to monitor and also potentially limit government spending. But most importantly, Musk has tried to dismantle U.S. aid. It oversees civilian foreign aid, and on Sunday, Musk called U.S. aid evil in various posts on X. Remember, Trump has already frozen foreign aid spending, but Musk has reportedly gone further. On Monday at around 1:45 a.m. local time, he posted on X, which he runs, by the way, and I quote here, "We spent the weekend feeding U.S. aid into the wood chipper. Could gone to some great parties, did that instead." But it does not stop there. Musk's allies now reportedly want to inject AI tools into government systems. Musk wants to use AI to help contracts and recommend cuts. In a meeting on Monday, Thomas Shedd, the recently appointed Technology Transformation Services Director and also an ally of Musk as a former Tesla engineer, reportedly told the Services Administration workers that the agency's new administrator is pursuing an AI-first strategy. Throughout the meeting, Shedd reportedly shared his vision for a GSA that operates, and like I'm quoting here, startup software company. The idea is to automate different internal tasks and also centralize data from across the federal government. Well, what's the problem with that, you may wonder and ask? Well, according to cybersecurity experts, this is a major red flag. For one, automating the government, it is not the same as automating other things like self-driving cars. We are talking about people here, not machines. People who are working for the welfare of the people, not for profit. Now, it's no surprise, but Musk's actions have alarmed Democrats as well as government watchdog groups. They question if Musk is breaching federal laws that give Congress the final power to create or eliminate federal agencies, to set their budgets, to require public disclosure of government actions, or to prohibit people from taking actions that might benefit themselves personally. Well, at least 4 lawsuits have been filed in federal court to challenge his authority, but it remains to be seen if the judicial review can keep up with Musk. On Monday, Democrats have reportedly said that they would introduce legislation to try to bar Musk's team from entering the Treasury system. Senator Chuck Schumer told New York Times, and I'm quoting here, "The Treasury Secretary must revoke DOGE's access to the Treasury payment system at once. If he does not, Congress must act immediately." Musk has been doing all of this in the name of cost cutting, which in itself is never a bad thing. But questions are now being raised. What about safeguards? Who is keeping a tab on accountability? What about conflict of interest here? You see, Musk is not just a government man now, he is also the world's richest man. A very, very successful entrepreneur who stands to benefit from government contracts as well as decisions under his influence. Ultimately, there's nothing for a government official to have what Musk has, a huge conflict of interest, including domestic holdings, foreign connections, business ties in China. There's also nothing for someone who is not a full-time employee to have so much power to reshape the federal workforce.